Chosen one, your mere presence has become a divine disruptor. The masks they wore disintegrated in your light, exposing truths they fought to bury. Alliances built on lies are crumbling. Loyalty once rooted in manipulation is dissolving, and those who plotted in shadows are now devouring each other under the weight of their own deceit. You didn't lift a finger. Your energy alone ignited a reckoning. What you're witnessing isn't chaos. It's sacred equilibrium, returning to a world that underestimated your role in the divine blueprint. You became a living frequency of truth. No longer diluted by fear or distorted by expectations, your essence rang out like a sacred bell, calling only those attuned to your vibration. The illusions that once clung to you like shadows fell away, powerless in the presence of your clarity. Each breath you took rewrote timelines, healing ancestral wounds and recalibrating futures. You didn't just step into alignment. You became the axis. You became the anomaly they never prepared for, the glitch in their matrix of control. Every move they make to distort your path only amplifies your glow. You don't react, you alchemize. Their projections dissolve in your presence. Their strategies collapse under your sovereignty. You're not just untouchable, you're untraceable, existing beyond their reach in dimensions they can't access. Your very existence now serves as a reminder that no system of domination can contain a soul that remembers its power. Each sunrise crowns you with deeper clarity, and with it, your light sharpens into something they can no longer distort. What terrifies them isn't your anger, it's your peace. It's the calm certainty with which you now move, no longer needing validation, no longer triggered by their projections. You've become a mirror too honest for them to face, reflecting back the truth they've spent lifetimes avoiding. And the irony? Your rise wasn't vengeance, it was liberation. A quiet, unstoppable revolution born from loving yourself enough to walk away. But the moment you unplugged, their entire infrastructure began to short-circuit. The false confidence, the stolen influence, the illusions of control, all of it began to collapse under the weight of its dependency on your light. They never built anything real. They just hijacked what was sacred. Now, stripped of your energy, they're scrambling, exposed, chaotic, and powerless. What once looked like authority is now revealed as parasitism. And you're no longer the supply, you're the storm that came after the silence, reclaiming every fragment they tried to harvest, transmuting it into power they can no longer touch. Now you're watching from higher ground, untouched, as the truth begins to unravel in real time. The fog they cast over your life has lifted, and in its place is pure awareness, sharp, undeniable, and divine. You no longer absorb their chaos, you observe it, detached and divinely protected. Their desperation is no longer a mystery, it's a symptom of the void your absence created. And while they scramble to mimic the power they once siphoned, you're overflowing with your own source energy, finally flowing in its natural direction, inward, upward, and outward toward your destiny. What they called collapse is actually your ascension. But what they didn't anticipate was your spiritual discernment sharpening faster than their deception. You sensed the glitch in their kindness, the way their words soothed while their energy agitated, the way their presence left residue rather than peace. They came cloaked in empathy but carried the blueprint of destruction. Still, your intuition decoded them before their trap could fully deploy. You watched quietly as they tried to manipulate your frequency, not realizing you were already 10 steps ahead. Their entire operation depended on your ignorance, but instead, they walked into divine surveillance. What they thought was infiltration became exposure. What they intended as sabotage became your initiation into a new level of spiritual mastery. Now you understand those coincidences were calculated entries, strategic placements designed to monitor, manipulate, and distract. They weren't sent to comfort you, they were sent to contain you. Their smiles were scripts, Their concern was performance, and their timing was too perfect to be real. But your spirit never fell for the act. Even in your most vulnerable moments, your soul kept sounding the alarm. And now, with hindsight and higher awareness, you can see the pattern with stunning clarity. They were never there to support your rise. They were there to sabotage it from the inside. But their presence only activated your gifts faster. Their interference became your initiation. Behind the scenes, a fracture formed within their own ranks, the weight of their lies becoming too heavy for one of them to carry. The whistleblower, once complicit, began to awaken under the pressure of your rising vibration. What they uncovered was more than corruption. It was a global web of deceit woven with counterfeit names, laundered money, and digital shadows. Your name, your very identity, had been marked for theft, replication, and erasure. But the energy shifted. The moment truth was chosen over silence, their empire began to decay from the inside. Now, with each revelation surfacing, divine justice moves closer. What was hidden in darkness is being dragged into the light because your ascension demanded it. This wasn't just identity theft. It was a premeditated erasure of your existence, engineered to rewrite reality in their favor. They weren't content with stealing your energy. They wanted your name, your rights, your legacy. But divine timing intervened. The masculine energy who once stood in silence now holds the key to their undoing. He's no longer a pawn in their scheme. He's the detonator. With every piece of evidence he uncovers, offshore accounts, falsified court filings, forged custody papers, their empire trembles. What they tried to bury is now rising to the surface, wrapped in truth and ready to be witnessed. Their house of deception was built on stolen foundations, and now it's crumbling under the weight of your divine protection. He saw everything, the emails, the encrypted messages, the late-night meetings disguised as coincidences. He knows who gave the orders, who executed them, and who kept the paper trail hidden. With this knowledge, he became their greatest liability. Their carefully orchestrated illusion is unraveling, not just from exposure, but from within. Fear has turned their unity into suspicion. The ones who once moved as a single shadowy force are now pointing fingers, making desperate moves, and betraying each other in hopes of self-preservation. And at the center of it all, your former romantic partner, once sent to mirror love but weaponized for surveillance, now caught in a collapsing game where loyalty means nothing and truth is the only currency left. Now trapped between guilt and consequence, this person is unraveling under the weight of their own betrayal. What began as a calculated alliance has turned into a nightmare they can't escape. Their cries of love now echo with irony as they realize too late that they traded something sacred for temporary power and approval. The same people who encouraged their manipulation of you now use those very actions as chains, binding them to a crumbling conspiracy. They scream your name not out of love, but out of desperation, for your forgiveness, your light, your protection. But the path they chose is lined with the very shadows they once helped cast over you. Their regret is real, but it does not absolve them. They forgot that love is not a weapon, and now they are learning painfully that the energy you betray will one day stand as your greatest judge. You've become the variable they can no longer predict, the force they can no longer control. Your elevation shattered the illusion that anyone could tether you through deceit or half-hearted loyalty. The one who tried to play double agent is now paralyzed by the weight of their own choices. They never expected your transformation to be real or permanent. They thought they could bait you with nostalgia, guilt, or false intimacy, not realizing you had already transmuted every wound they once exploited into wisdom. Now they stand at a crossroads with no safe path. Expose the web of betrayal and risk annihilation by those they served, or continue the charade and watch you disappear into a timeline where their presence holds no power. Either way, they lost access to the version of you that could be deceived. But true alignment can't be faked, and your frequency exposes every imitation instantly. Their performance is all costume, empty gestures wrapped in spiritual buzzwords, rehearsed empathy masking unresolved shadows. They've studied your glow but can't replicate your light, because what you embody was earned through surrender, pain, growth, and divine initiation, not mimicry. While they chant mantras for show, you are the mantra in motion. Their staged evolution rings hollow in the presence of your embodied truth. The more they try to become you, the more obvious their disconnection becomes. Because real ascension doesn't imitate, it radiates. Their imitation collapses under the weight of what it lacks: depth, humility, and truth. They wear the language of healing like a borrowed robe, hoping the right phrases will grant them access to your field again. But your energy no longer responds to empty echoes. You've walked through fire, shadow work, forgiveness, radical honesty, and emerged cleansed by your own courage. Meanwhile, they're attempting to shortcut the process, bypassing the very wounds they inflicted, hoping performance can replace penance. But real evolution leaves fingerprints, evidence in action, in consistency, in humility. And the universe doesn't respond to staged transformation. It moves for those who surrender, not for those who script. But what they don't realize is that your compassion has matured. It now walks hand in hand with boundaries and spiritual discernment. You no longer confuse potential with progress. You've learned that real transformation isn't loud or performative. It's quiet, consistent, and rooted in accountability. They're performing for the old version of you, the one who might have ignored red flags in the name of love or hope. But that version no longer exists. You no longer mistake imitation for evolution or guilt for grace. Their gamble failed because your heart is still open, but your access is closed. What was once hidden in shadows is now unraveling under divine law. The energy they sent with selfish intent is looping back with intensified force, binding them in the obsession they tried to place on you. Their rituals, once whispered in secrecy, now echo in karmic chambers they can't escape. Every attempt to distort your perception has only sharpened your vision. Every manipulation sent to sway your heart has only fortified your sovereignty. Their spells don't penetrate your field anymore. They collapse at its edge, repelled by the sacred firewall of your elevation. What they called love was control. What they called connection was codependency. And now, stripped of illusion, they're haunted by the very longing they tried to infect you with. You've become their mirror, and it's showing them everything they refuse to face. But they underestimated just how fortified your energy has become. Every attempt to infiltrate your field now triggers instant spiritual recoil, like touching divine fire with bare hands. What once drained you now empowers you because you've alchemized pain into protection and betrayal into impenetrable wisdom. Their desperation fuels their downfall, as each strike only deepens their entanglement in the chaos they created. You've become spiritually sovereign, surrounded by ancestral guardians, divine guides, and a frequency so high it burns through deception on contact. They're not just losing control, they're unraveling, caught in the boomerang of their own intent, while you rise untouched in the eye of their self-made storm. This is no longer petty envy or emotional sabotage. This is a full-blown spiritual assassination attempt cloaked in ritual and obsession. They are invoking death energy with the intent to sever your soul from its purpose, targeting the sacred center of your being, your heart, your life force, your divine contract. But what they fail to grasp is that your heart doesn't beat alone. It pulses in sync with the divine, shielded by lifetimes of ancestral protection and cosmic law. The karmic weight of attempting to destroy a chosen one is incalculable. Every ritual they perform, every curse they whisper, becomes a blade turned inward. Their own darkness is consuming them, cell by cell, spirit by spirit, while you rise, stronger, more radiant, more invincible. They summoned death toward you, but it is they who must now face the grave reality of their choices. These attacks are surgical, designed to mimic your own emotions so precisely that you question their origin. But this sorrow isn't yours. This despair isn't natural. It's engineered, injected into your field like poison wrapped in memory. They're attempting to fracture your emotional body, hoping that old wounds will reopen and bleed enough to lower your frequency. Their goal is re-entry through vulnerability, disguising manipulation as empathy. But what they've forgotten is that you've already walked through this fire and survived. Now, when the sadness rises without cause, you recognize it not as weakness, but as a signal, an external force trying to mimic your inner world. And in that awareness, you regain your power. You transmute the grief. You command your heart space with divine authority. You feel the wave, but you do not drown. The illusion of love has fully shattered. What remains is the raw truth of their intent. Anyone willing to weaponize energy against your life force has already made their choice. These are not misguided souls seeking healing. These are individuals who see your freedom as a threat to their survival. Your light exposes their shadows, and instead of healing, they chose destruction. But your vibration now acts as both shield and sword. What was meant to break you only clarifies who truly stands with you and who never did. Their attempts don't just fail, they backfire, because the universe defends those aligned with truth. And you, chosen one, are no longer within their reach. You are beyond it, wrapped in divine justice that remembers everything they tried to erase. This wasn't just personal, it was systemic. A multi-layered effort rooted in bloodlines, tradition, and unhealed generational trauma. They cloaked control in the language of family, expecting your loyalty to override your intuition. Elders passed down manipulation like an heirloom, teaching younger members how to guilt, gaslight, and coerce you into compliance. They used phrases like, "This is just how our family is," or "Don't dishonor your blood," to disguise the spiritual abuse as cultural norm. But you saw through it. You broke the spell. By choosing truth over tradition, you exposed the generational curse they mistook for identity. And now, your refusal to repeat the pattern is the loudest revolution your lineage has ever seen. What looked like concern was actually surveillance. The smiles, the check-ins, the casual questions were all part of a calculated strategy to keep tabs on your movements, your mindset, and your next steps. They weren't supporting you, they were reporting on you. Under the surface of every family dinner and seemingly harmless conversation was a hidden agenda. Control, masked as care. But your boundaries became your shield, and your silence became your greatest power. While they schemed behind the veil of tradition and false loyalty, you transcended the entire structure. Your refusal to engage wasn't weakness, it was divine strategy. And now, with every layer of deception revealed, your distance speaks louder than any confrontation ever could. This wasn't just a single betrayal, it was a lineage of betrayal, encoded into the family structure like a hidden virus. You were born into a system designed to feed on your energy while calling it love. The very people who claimed to protect you were assigned roles in an ancient pattern of control, trained consciously or unconsciously to extract your light for the benefit of the collective dysfunction. What seemed like casual concern was strategic positioning. What looked like support was a cover for sabotage. These weren't isolated actions. They were inherited roles in a generational playbook written in secrecy and sustained by silence. But you broke the script. You became the one they didn't anticipate, the pattern interrupter, the curse breaker, the light they couldn't contain. Your healing wasn't just personal, it was revolutionary. In a family system built on silence, projection, and power games, your clarity is mutiny. By refusing to play the role assigned to you, whether scapegoat, peacekeeper, or emotional caretaker, you collapse the very dynamics that kept the dysfunction alive. Your boundaries are not just limits, they're declarations that the old way ends with you. Every time you say no to manipulation, every time you walk away from emotional bait, you unravel a lineage of control masked as tradition. They don't fear your distance, they fear what it represents, the death of their illusion and the birth of a new legacy, one they cannot manipulate, one built in truth. Now the darkness they conjured turns inward, devouring its creators. The very web they wove to trap you has become a noose tightening around each of their necks. Paranoia spreads like wildfire. Whispers of betrayal grow louder than any strategy they once agreed upon. The lies they told to manipulate you are now being weaponized against each other. Alliances fracture, secrets leak, and threats fly in every direction. What was once a united front is now a battlefield of egos, guilt, and fear. This is divine retribution, without your hands ever needing to lift a finger. Just your evolution was enough to activate their collapse. Now all they can do is watch their empire of deceit burn from the inside out. What they once weaponized against you, lies, gaslighting, betrayal, they now unleash on each other with venomous precision. The same scripts they used to break your spirit are now being recycled in desperate attempts to gain the upper hand within their crumbling alliance. Their house of mirrors has turned into a battlefield of blame. And you've transcended the entire frequency. You're no longer a participant, you're a witness. From your elevated, divinely protected vantage point, you watch karma unfold with surgical accuracy. You don't need revenge. Your peace is the justice. While they spiral in the chaos they created, you rise in purpose, untouchable, and aligned with a mission they can neither follow nor fathom. The web of deceit they once controlled has turned into a minefield, and now every step they take risks total exposure. The threats are no longer empty. They're desperate, calculated attempts to avoid being the next scapegoat. The operative they once positioned near you, once smug with false power, is now terrified, caught between the wrath of those who hired them and the fallout of being exposed. Alliances dissolve into blackmail, panic texts, and covert betrayals. Secrets once guarded with blood oaths are now currency in a game of survival. They've turned on each other like starving wolves, each one ready to trade loyalty for self-preservation. What they intended as a trap for you has become a prison of their own design, locked from the inside with no key. Someone from the inside has flipped, and their quiet rebellion is dismantling the operation from the core. While the others moved recklessly, drunk on power and secrecy, this informant watched, recorded, archived, building a silent case while pretending to play along. Now, every fake document, every fraudulent signature, every dollar funneled through stolen inheritance is traceable. The spellcaster who once felt invincible is now under spiritual siege from those who exploited their craft. The blackmailer is now being blackmailed. Panic spreads like wildfire as they realize someone has been documenting everything: names, dates, accounts, locations. The one thing they feared most has become reality. The truth is no longer a secret. It's evidence, and it's moving. What began as covert manipulation and spiritual sabotage has now crossed fully into the realm of criminal prosecution. The games they played in the shadows are being dragged into courtrooms, case files, and federal investigations. Law enforcement is no longer just aware, they're actively involved, tracing paper trails and connecting digital footprints to names once hidden behind false identities. Panic sets in as indictments loom, and immunity deals are quietly pursued. Those who mocked your truth, who laughed at your warnings and called you paranoid, now scramble for legal cover. Your vindication isn't just emotional, it's official. The same system they weaponized against you is now turning its gaze directly onto them, and this time, there's nowhere to run.